Hi, I'm Richard Morais, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
And all of you that are watching online, a couple more weeks and it'll be back to normal. God bless you. All right, so we're doing the Summer of Love. And the whole idea of the Summer of Love is that we get to practice loving in ways that are sometimes difficult. Does everybody have at least one person in your life right now that it's hard for you to love? If you don't have, I can let you borrow one of my family members, really. I got a ton of them. Really, you can borrow them, right? Because sometimes in the world today, we're kind of getting stuck in our drama. You know, we're getting stuck in the conflict. And I wanted to do a series that really opened our hearts so that we could really see, because if we don't become more loving, we get to do this one again. Right? Does that make sense? Because the universe loves you so much that if you don't learn the lesson, you get another time. And another time, and another time, and another time. That's the joy of living in an infinite universe, is that there's always an opportunity for growth. Right? So this summer I focused on a few spiritual ideas. Let's put the first one up. So the first one, the one we began with is, I will not add conflict. Right? And then over and over again, in every moment, we're at a choice point. Am I going to add conflict to this situation, or am I just going to keep my mouth shut? Do I really need to tweet that? Does that really need to be said? Does the whole world really need to know my opinion about that? Probably not. Right? We know you're brilliant already, right? Right? So we're just not going to add conflict. Then the second one we focused on is to open your heart. And the world doesn't get better until our heart's open. Because the infinite love of God can only flow through us when our hearts are open. We don't think love, we become love. We open our hearts and let the infinite love of God bless us, bless our families, bless our friends, bless our neighborhoods. But it's only with an open heart. And then we talked about the idea of seeing the greatness in others. That's really seeing the God in others, seeing the Christ in others, seeing the divine, seeing the essence in others, that we can actually look past all their shenanigans, that's a spiritual term, right? And see the activity of God in them. And then we focused on acceptance. And acceptance can be tough, right? Because we just want people to behave the way we want them to behave, right? We would just want our family to act the way we want them to act. And accepting people, no matter how they show up, sometimes for most of us is a stretch. That we get to practice acceptance over and over and over again. And then last week we focused on staying full. That our job as a spiritual being is to stay full with love. Right? That it's easier to love when we're full. When we're running on empty, it's hard to do. But as we're full, as we're overflowing with the love of God, we can be more generous of spirit. And today we're going to focus on forgiveness. Right? Yay! I'm so excited, right? How many of you have at least one person in your life that you know that you need to forgive more to and offer them more forgiveness? Everybody have at least one? Anybody have a private resentment that nobody knows how resentful you are, but you keep it as your kind of private resentment because you don't want to share really how small and petty you can be from time to time? Does anybody? I have one of those. Do you have one of those? Yeah, right? And what would happen if we had to forgive everybody for everything? Yay! Right? Let's say that together. I forgive everyone for everything. One more time, like you mean it. I forgive everyone for everything. Okay, I want you to pin a pin in that. I want you to hold on to that one. Now, the question that I have for you is, why does God expect us to forgive? Well, Richard, I didn't know he did. Like, who told me that, right? But what if God actually expects you to forgive? What if that's the spiritual expectation in the universe, that no matter what happens, you're expected to forgive? I don't want to. I have free will. I don't have to. True. Do you have free will? Yeah, so can you stay as miserable as you want for as long as you want? Absolutely, right? But I want you to hear that God has an expectation that we're all going to forgive, and that we're going to forgive rapidly. That as we progress spiritually, it's supposed to be easier and easier for us to forgive and hold no resentments. Okay? Hold that idea. I'm going to move on just a little bit. If I wanted to give you, everybody in this room, $1, would you take it? Like, anybody have any child? If I just stood out in the back and said, as part of my spiritual practice today, I just want to give everybody $1, would any of you have a problem taking it? No, it's the first time I ever got anything at church. It'd be fantastic. Right? Finally, the minister's coughing it up, you know? You know, what if I wanted to give you $2? Would you take it? Now, would anybody be offended that I didn't offer you more? Would anybody say, no, man, if it's not $10, I'm not taking it. Why bother? That's chump change, right? No, so if I offered you $1 or $2, you'd probably take it. You'd probably, the most amazing thing happened. The minister actually gave me $2, right? You'd love that. So the book that I've been using on Wednesday nights, it's called The Happiness Advantage. And one of the research studies that they shared in this book was a study where they brought in two people, two subjects, A and B. They sat them down at a table. To A, now they didn't know each other. They weren't family members. They had no knowledge of each other. They sat them down at a table, and to A, they gave 10 $1 bills. And said to A, you can give B any or none of this money. Right? And B's sitting right there. You can give B any or none of this money, but the only catch, the only caveat, is if B doesn't take the money, you don't get it either. So A has $10, 10 $1 bills, and then has to decide how much money they're going to give to B, knowing that if they don't give B, if B doesn't take what they give them, that nobody gets anything. All right, do you understand the premise? So what they wanted to know is what would happen, right? Would they go, you know? And so they began to look at the results. Like, some people gave $1, some people gave $2, some people gave $8. They wanted to know what the results would be. One of the things that was staggering about this result is that the majority of people who were offered $1 or $2 said, no thank you, got up and left. Right? Because in their minds, they were just given 10, right? They should be given equal amounts, right? It should be fair. And when they were only offered $1 or $2, they got up and left. And so how much money did either one of them get if they got up and left? None. So I want you to hear that was the vast majority of people that were offered $1 or $2, got up and left. And when they got up and left, how much money did they get? None. And what they wanted to study was whether people could remain rational in the presence of money. Right? Because is it rational if somebody offers you $2 to leave it on the table? No. Is that your ego driving the bus? Let me help you. That is not rational, okay? Right? For any of you that thought, well, that makes perfect sense to me. If he's going to disrespect me, I'm not going to take a lousy $2. Why should I give him 8 when I'm only getting 2, right? And you get up and leave. And what I want you to see is what the scientists believe is that wasn't rational thinking. It was small and egotistical and petty, and it was like, no, you walked in with nothing, you were offered $2, take it. Right? But the majority of people, when it was $1 or $2, can I say this again? The majority of people passed. Does that surprise you? It does me. It's like, it's $2. I know it's only $2, but it's $2. Right? I pick up pennies on the street. Right? It's $2. So what I want to talk about today is, have you ever done anything dumb? Right? Have you ever done anything stupid? I can go all the way down the edge. But that made so much sense at the time. That's what I'm talking about, is the thing that was just idiotic, but it made absolute sense at the time. Those people that were walking away from $2, in their mind, that made perfect sense. Of course they had to walk away from $2. They were being insulted. They were being deprived. They were being cheated. Whatever their story was, they 100% believed their story that got them up walking away from $2. They believed it. What I want you to see today is that the whole basis of the universe is that we need forgiveness. Because we do amazingly stupid things. And we tend to do them to each other. Have you ever been surprised that your stupidity just didn't affect you? Right? That it kind of rippled out to the people that you love and care about. It kind of goes out in directions. And even though you don't want to impact people negatively, we bump into people all the time. And when we bump into people, we hurt each other. And the universe designed a process so that we could bump into each other, forgive each other, and it was supposed to be okay, right? That we were supposed to be able to move on so that we didn't keep doing dumb things over and over again. Let me go to Scripture. Luke 15, beginning with verse 11. And there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the property that falls to me." And he divided his living between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered up all that he'd been given and took his journey into a faraway country. And there he squandered his property on, this says loose living. One version says riotous living. I actually like riotous living better. If you're going to squander your money, would you rather do it on a loose way or a riotous way? I'd rather go, if you're going to go big, I'd go all the way. Let's go all the way to riotous living, right? So it says he squandered his living on riotous living. And when he had spent everything, a great famine arose in that country, and he began to be in want. So he went and he joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed the swine. And he would gladly have fed on the pods that the swine ate, but no one offered him anything. All right, so for a Jewish boy to have to feed the swine, is that a high position or a low position? If for a Jewish boy to want to eat hog food, is that a high position or a low position? Low position. And he would gladly fed on the pods if the swine, if anyone had offered. But then he came to himself, and I love that line. And then he came to himself. Can you think of a time when you were acting out of your craziness, and then you just came to yourself? I love those moments where it's like, right? I could have had a V8, right? He said to himself, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to eat and to spare? But I perish here with hunger. And I will rise up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired servants.' And he arose and he came to his father. But when he was yet a far distance, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And his son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against you and before heaven, and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring him quickly the best robes and put it on him, and put rings on his fingers and shoes on his feet. And bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and make merry. For my son was dead, and now he's alive again. He was lost, and now he's found.' And they began to make merry." Now, this is where the story gets interesting, right? Now, the older brother was in the fields, and he came near because he heard the music. And he heard the music and saw the dancing, and he called out to one of the servants and said, "What is the meaning of all this?" And he said, "Your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he'd received him safe and sound." And the older brother was angry and refused to go in. So his father came out and entertained him. And he said to him, "Lo, all these many years I have served you. I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you've never given me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. But when your son of yours came home, and who has devoured all that you gave him with harlots, you killed for him the fatted calf. And he said to him, son, you have always been with me, and all that I have is yours. It is fitting to make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and now he's alive. He was lost, but now he is found. So how many of us could imagine the father having given away half of his estate? His younger son gathered it all up, went to a faraway country, and partied like a rock star. Right? Until it was all gone. And then he comes dragging his tail back and expects to be taken in. Right? How many of us can imagine the father having a bit of an attitude that his youngest son just wasted half of it, everything that he made? He just blew it away, right? Blew it, gone. Not coming back, gone, right? Now, from the human part of us, does that make perfect sense to have a little bit of an attitude about that? Right? Now, his older brother, who just saw him blow half the family estate, he's not even upset with his brother. Did you hear that in the story? He's not like, what'd you do, right? Who's he mad at? He's mad at the dad, right? Because he's mad at the dad because when did I get anything, right? How many of us have ever really paid more attention to what somebody else had and mad that we didn't get our share? Have you ever been in that place? Because we were really paying attention to what somebody else got instead of really asking for yourself. Right? What I want you to see in this story really is the difference between spiritual forgiveness and human forgiveness. Right? At human forgiveness, we want everything to be fair. Have you ever wanted something in your life to be fair? Right? And from the human place of us, we check to make sure everything is fair. True? Amen? The spiritual part of us, right, that represents the Father, the spiritual part of us is infinite. The Father knew that he could recreate it over and over and over again, right? So when the older son came to him and said, I never got this, his line is pretty much, you never asked for it. I would have given you anything. I gave it to your brother. I would have given it to you. You never asked for anything. And you're mad now because you never got what you never asked for. Right? I want you to hear this as your conversation with God. Right? That the universe will give you whatever you ask for. Right? How many of you were taught that life's supposed to be fair? Right? Let me just let you know that I read pretty much all of the Bible. There's not one line that says life is going to be fair. Can I say that one more time? There's not one teaching that says life is fair. What the Bible does teach us is that life is infinite. What would you rather have, a fair world or an infinite world, if you can't have both? See, the human part of us counts, keeps track, watches, pays attention, looks over our neighbor's fences. We pay attention to what other people are getting, and all the while we are connected to the infinite. See, forgiveness is so much harder from the human point of view, because the human point of view feels robbed and cheated and taken advantage of and put down and insulted and slandered and all the human things that the human goes through in feeling disappointed. And it's hard from a human point of view to forgive. But from a divine place, from a spiritual place, from a God place, where there's an infinite amount of go around, when there's always enough, when there's more than enough over and over again, that from the spiritual point of view, forgiveness isn't that hard. Because you have an infinite amount. And where we are in the world right now is we're debating whether we're going to live from a spiritual point of view or a divine point of view. Because there is a human part of us that is getting really worked up about who gets what and how much they get. And is that right that they get that much? Should they get that much? Are they getting more than I'm getting? But that's not spiritual. That's egotistical. That's human. That's understandable, but it's not spiritual. Spiritual is infinite. God wants you to look up. Look to a higher possibility. Look to more than you think is possible, to be willing to see higher and higher things. In the Course of Miracles lesson, I think it's 86, 68. No, it's 68. It's one of them. I think it's 68. It says, love holds no grievances. Love holds no grievances. Why? Because love is divine. It's spiritual. It invites us to look beyond our human keeping track. It invites us to go beyond what is fair and touch what is divine. So what if you had to forgive everyone for everything? Do you see that if you do it from your human point of view, it looks like you're giving them a break? But what really happens is when you forgive another, you keep taking track of the littler stuff, and you start opening your mind to the infinite. I forgive all people for everything. Will you say that with me? I forgive all people for everything. One more time. I forgive all people for everything. So one time, many years ago, a woman came up to me and said in church, and said to me, I forgive you. And I said, great. Thank you so much. And she said, well, don't you want to know why I'm forgiving you? I said, not really. She said, well, what do you mean you don't want to know? You don't want to know why I'm forgiving you? I said, not really, because it's really none of my business. Right? It's not really about me. It's really about your judgment of me. It really doesn't have anything to do with me. It's your resentment that you forgave, and I appreciate that you forgave me. I need all the forgiveness I can get, but I don't really need to go into your drama about it. It's just your drama about it, right? And she got more and more upset the longer I was talking. And I said, so is there a little bit more forgiveness work we need to do right now? And she said, well, apparently so, because this was not supposed to be your reaction. You were supposed to be so grateful for me that I forgave you. And I said, but I am, right? I'm grateful for your soul, right? She said, no, I forgave you. Whoopee-doo, right? Like, I, with all due respect, right, I want to hear, right, that I love anything that I've ever done to offend you. Please forgive me, right? I mean that. Ho'oponopono all the time, man. Please forgive me, right? But hear me, the difference between spiritual forgiveness and human forgiveness. Human forgiveness keeps track. Like, we want to know. How many of you were raised in a family where whoever cut, the other one got to choose? Do you know what I mean by that? In the family that I grew up in, because I had a brother who was just 18 months younger than me, in the family I grew up with, whoever cut whatever it was, if it was the last piece of cake or whatever it was, whoever got to cut got to choose, because we found that if the person who cut got to choose, it was always a little weighted toward the one that cut, right? So when we developed the family rule that whoever cut, the other one got to choose, we would get a micrometer out. I mean, we would count the crumbs. I mean, it became a scientific formula to make sure that the atomic weight of both pieces of cake were exactly the same, right? Because two boys, man, we are not sharing anything. We were competitive in sports, we were competitive in school, we were competitive in everything, right? So what I want you to see over and over again is that I want you to be willing to shift from the human part of you and to forgive from the divine part of you. That the human part of you is always going to keep track. It's going to count. It's going to pay attention to who gets what. That's what the human part of us does. That's what our ego does. It keeps track. But the divine part of you, the spiritual part of you, keeps inviting you to look to God. Like, wherever you feel the most stuck right now, wherever you have a resentment, wherever you're keeping track of what other people have or don't have, I invite you to move beyond your humanality, your personality, and experience the divine, to look to God and see if God won't bless you in a much bigger, greater way. Let's put the last slide up, will you, Brandon? Thank you. The last point that I want to make today is there's three ways. The first two are from points that I've made already on this series. But I really want you to look at what love is. So love is willing to see another child of God as divine. I see you. I really see you. I see who you are. I see your potential. I see your light. I see God. I see the Christ. I see you. And I accept you. I accept you in your humanity. I accept you in your silliness, your goofiness. I accept you in your mistakes. I accept you in all the ways that you show up in your humanity. I accept you. And then in all the places where we bump, in all the places where we smack into each other, or we offend each other, or disappoint each other, I forgive you. So guess what your homework is this week? You ready? Do you have a God-given right to stay in your humanity as long as you want to? Do you have a God-given right to be as miserable as you want to be? Yes. Over and over again this week, your homework is to shift from your humanity, who counts and checks and makes sure that everything's fair. Did you hear me at least once today say that life isn't fair? But it's infinite. So if you were willing to give up fairness for the infinite, can you see that you're going to be much more blessed? Do you see that? Much more blessed. So over and over again, what I want you to do is shift from your humanity, from your story, from your drama, from your resentments, and to look at the infiniteness of God. And see if you don't get more blessed. See if you don't open the door to a greater life, not only for you, but for your family and for the world. If we keep trying to keep track of who gets what, it makes us small and petty. If we look to the infinite, we become generous of spirit. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. That there is only one presence and one power. Today we open our mind and heart and our soul to see the infinite Spirit of God. For all those who have bumped against us, for all those who have disappointed us or frustrated us or made us angry, today we just forgive. I forgive you. I see you. I see God in you. And I see your humanity. See the places where you get stuck. And I forgive you for it all. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. God bless you all. Have a great week. Thanks for being here today.